except you don't have to plant it every year. It's a perennial. So it has an unbelievably strong root system that comes back every year. And we burned, these were produced on our farm because we harvest the seeds. And the thing makes like tassels and silks, and then eventually it makes the kernels of corn. So, and they mature like one at a time, these little corn kernels. And the people that were here before us, this was an important plant for food. We're kind of not that smart, and we think our corn is better than their corn or something. Anyhow, it's like 39% protein. The corn we eat is 16, and the corn we eat you have to plant every year. And this one, it knows exactly how to live right here without any extra care. And it thrives on riverbanks in riparian areas as well as in the uplands. So, something to learn about. I did bring some switchgrass, but I didn't want to push 2 strollers across the river.
So what, if that's not switchgrass, what is it?
Eastern gamma grass.
Oh, that's gamma grass.
So, yesterday we did our thing in the courthouse, then we went down to the river at the state park to an exceptionally damaged area. The trees and everything was like a lot of the other areas. And guess what was down on the shore there already along the banks? Eastern gamma. And it had all been scoured and the roots were exposed. These are like corns. They're not like hair root type plants. They're like, if anybody's ever grown iris or iris bulbs, they're kind of like that, a big tangle of those though. But it's even much stronger than Johnson grass. Johnson grass has rhizomes that are fleshy and soft, and they're no bigger than that usually. But this is, I mean, I could, if I wasn't in someone's beautiful home, I would just dissect this thing, because more of this would do the Blanco and all of Texas rivers some good in comparison to St. Augustine, for example. So, I kind of am getting out of order because I got shook up on the way over here. But
now you know how we do it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm not sure how I end up in the front sometimes. I have an 11th grade education. I borrowed a shovel and a rake and a lawnmower when I was 19. And I advertised in the local garbage bills in the monthly billings of this very small town up in North Texas, near Flower Mound, Texas. And I said, total outdoor care. And I began by building, my first job was to build a retaining wall for erosion control. And over time, I built a greenhouse, and got into a nursery production, had a couple of acres under a shade cloth, and then had a tree farm, became a licensed irrigator, and got really deep into landscape. At some point or another, we had this retail nursery and landscape construction company with 45 people. And we were doing stuff in the DFW area. But along came the drought of 1980. It really wasn't anything like the one that we're really in now, but 100 days, 100 degrees and no rain, and all of the work I had done failed. It was all stuff like Asian jasmine, Chinese holly, India hawthorn, African Bermuda, Caribbean St. Augustine, Pakistan crepe myrtle. All of the, if you listen to the names, it may give you a hint about they don't belong here. They require more resources than what our natural world will give. So I realized I was part of the problem and made a big shift. So I would like to ask a question. How many folks in here, I know this is more like a larger ranch and maybe for longer stretches of the river. I know we're definitely out in the country somehow, or a perception of what country is now, but is the room landowners with long stretches of river, or is the room people with riverfront home sites?
Probably both.
Will be a
Yeah,
mix.
mix.
A mix, thank you. I didn't know, I'm thinking probably when we get to Wimberley tomorrow morning, it's gonna be mostly much smaller properties. And I was wanting to make sure that I understand the audience the best I can, but also the subject matter. There are some issues about, and the reason I went through that whole laundry list of who I am, or at least the first half of who I was, I still am, but it was all landscape based. And I realized even the word landscaping, which implies human control over the land, is we have some problems there as a people. And we are in dire need of what I like to refer to as a paradigm shift. The American lawn is actually killing us. The largest agricultural crop in the United States is sod. There's 44 million acres of sod farms. Would you believe that? The largest user of pesticide and fertilizer is the American lawn. In the great state of Texas, our lone star, 70% of our drinking water goes on watering landscapes. So I know we're not really talking about water today, other than how to heal this, what should be regarded as a family member, the Blanco River. We should be treating our rivers like our sisters and our brothers. And we've got a lot of things to learn now and we've been lying to ourselves for a long time, but now that the truth is coming out, how will we heal these wounds? And it's going to take not one person, it's going to take all of us working collectively. We're actually all in this together. Though I came from another watershed, the Llano River, I feel as strongly about the Blanco as I do my own river, where I live. We cannot live without water, pure, clean water. And I understand the focus today is about the riparian recovery. But there's a lot of other things that are going to have to reach a real recovery. We're going to have to look at ourselves and at each other and at our leadership. And we're going to need to be thinking about cooperating instead of defecting. It's something like being in prison and the prisoner's dilemma. And the DA comes along and he wants to talk to you individually and try and make a deal and see if you will squeal on the other guy. But I think the prisoners always fare better when they cooperate with each other instead of when they defect and not trust each other. It's a good time now to reflect upon some of the shortcomings that we may have brought to this situation. I never hear Texans really talk much about a land use plan. I hear way too much talk about property rights. And I don't hear hardly a darn thing about responsibility.
Amen.
It's rather upsetting when you get to this point to be able to bring us together as friends, neighbors, community, and land stewards. It's up to us. If we're waiting for the government to fix this, we're going to be sorely disappointed. I think we need to think about policy changes. Not only the riparian area and how we treat this sacred land, this most highly productive, unique land of the whole ecosystem is right in the riparian buffer zone. But we've got to start thinking about what are we doing in the uplands also. And how important a role all of it interconnected plays in being able to be much more resilient against these type of events. It's like we invited this almost. And it's an accumulative effect the way nature works. Nature wants to live and wants to be resilient, but if we keep nicking at it, nick by nick, at some point, an accumulative effect occurs and you cross a threshold and things happen. One thought might be that the way we treated the uplands and the way we treated the riparian area, and I'm going to kind of pick on landscaping because I know myself how much of that how much mistakes I've made. We go in and clear the brush. We make the large giant estate trees very beautiful. We make the world look like a park or a golf course. We take our Caribbean St. Augustine, a native of tropical areas that likes to live around 10 feet above sea level, and in its natural habitat would receive 75 to 175 inches of rain. And we'll bring it up here in the hills, 1,000 to 2,000 feet above sea level, where it only rains 25 inches a year. And we're trying to put that to do the job of what the native vegetation was doing that we replaced. We mow and blow and fertilize and weed and feed, and this park that we created has this much vegetation, uniform. It almost might as well be concrete. At least it's green and it's soft. And then you have our ancient trees that we've now sacrificed for us to learn this lesson. These trees now have given up. They couldn't hold it back by themselves. It's too big of a job, even for a 1,000-year-old cypress tree, to do that by itself. It takes a village of plants. It's more than eastern gamagrass also. It takes an interconnectedness of a riparian buffer zone that acts like a sponge that can withstand an event like what happened to us. I brought a few pictures that I'm going to try and go through that will help, probably more than anybody, help me move along. Not all plants are equal. I have spent since 1980, I realized I was part of the problem, and I realized that the next generation would have the right to slit our throats, that we have used up all of their drinking water for no other reason than to keep up with the Joneses. That's about what the American lawn is all about. I got focused on native prairie and rebuilding grasslands. I've done plenty of work with trees, but I decided I could probably cover more ground by getting away from the nursery aspect and start working with seeds. We took, somewhere along the way, I eased out of the landscaping and at first shifted all of our plants to natives, but then eventually I got away from even container plants. This was dug out of the farm this morning. If we don't grow them in buckets. I set about starting a thing called Native American Seed in 1988. We did our first harvest. So this is my 27th year. And we've built some pretty cool prairies. But I know this isn't what this is about. But prairie is part of what the riparian is about, the uplands. I always stay back from the delicate areas along the waterways, thinking that there's two things. One, they're very resilient and they can, if properly managed, heal themselves. But also, I always thought there would be somebody more smarter than I would be to deal with particularly with the wetland areas. It's a whole nother world there. But lo and behold, in Texas, it's rather rare that there are people that are working that, and they certainly aren't working it from an aspect of seed, which is so efficient. This event has drawn me closer to the water's edge, and we put about half of our staff, we have 21 people, we put half of them onto this project to develop a riparian seed mix. About probably 7 or 8 days ago is when we got started. We dug deeply into lots of literature. Some of the best written factual and technical information has been produced by another gentleman in this room who spent his lifetime working to help teach Americans to become better land stewards. It's Steve Nelly right here in the plaid shirt. He's developed a checklist for Texas that is like a rating of plants that are based on their usage in a wet area, their facultative uses. There are a lot of plants that are useful in wet or dry areas. This young man here, Mr. Hummel, is suggesting that I make mention that Steve Nelly's work is published and available on the table in partnership with Sky Louie and the Nueces River Authority, a couple of watersheds over to the south and the west. This checklist that we went through, we have 178 species of what we call prairie plants. Well, it turns out we found about 40 of them, it's just under 40, that are facultative, that they would be useful in wet or dry locations. And several of them are specifically in the wetland areas, some of the species that we have been working with all along. So we were able to at least narrow down what we knew we could get our hands on right now. But it goes beyond just that. This thing about all plants are not equal. Well, even all of the plants in the water, in the riparian area, are not equal. And so there's a lot of different ways of looking at these plants. Can you men see here? And you already saw it yesterday. But let me know if I need to move or... Here is a graphic that helps people understand why plants really are different. We have St. Augustine over here in red, and there it is mowed, and there's its root system. And you move across, here's big bluestem. It is one of the most common prairie plants until we severely overgrazed them almost to extinction. Side oaks grama is the state grass of Texas. It grows up in these hills in the caliche and the rocks and the thin soils. Switchgrass kind of likes it down by the riparian. I have the brother to my eastern gamma grass is out in the car on the other side of the river baking. But look at that root system. 10 feet plus. Here we have, for those that are into short grasses, a buffalo grass. And look at that root system. Buffalo grass is kind of cool. I'm going to throw it out here because you say some of the people in the room are into riverfront kind of home landscape kind of. That's their land. That's their land management they need to learn about. St. Augustine gets about 12 or 14 inches tall or so if you never mow it. Buffalo grass gets about 5 or 6 inches tall if you never mow it. But look at the usefulness of that root system in comparison. But even there, I don't want to stop there. There's a thing that Steve Nelly and others have taken it a step further, and they rate the plants by their ability to stabilize erosive forces of water. So once you drill into this, and it's too complicated for average persons that have to be specialists in all the other things that all of us have to do in our lives. But it's at least worth noting that there is a system now that's been developed by some scientists. It's relatively new information. You would think we would have figured this out before we went to Mars or Moon or all the other things, but this is like 5-year-old information that before we finally drilled down to this level. This is actually a shot off of my own riverbank up on the Llano, and the roots is one thing, but there's something about the tops of these plants. Let's say that you're the upland, and somewhere we go, I don't know this country as good as I should, but somewhere there's some narrows around here, and a big old wall of water comes out the backside and just whooshes down.
Sorry, honey.
Grass is pretty flexible. Tall grass that has this exceptional root system also provides another exceptional service or function. The water is rushing over. The soil is under here, but is the water digging on the soil? No. We just protected the soil.
Like a blanket.
Like shingles.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Bill, how do you approach planting grasses in gravel along the river, which you showed a picture of sand in your river bottom. Here you've got maybe 5 or 6 feet of gravel mixed with caliche stuff underneath it.
Yes.
How do you just?
There are
plant
actually
seeds,
some
or?
that do thrive in gravel bars. This is probably not one of them. This one needs to get into the soil up on the bank.
Right.
But the switchgrass, the other one that's in the car baking, you will find it on the gravel bars.
So is that a broadcasting and scratch the soil to get it going in the
Good,
fall?
or make seed balls or live roots. We have several acres of this in production of these species. We have a little handout that's on the table in the back
I
of the room.
hate to push you forward, Bill.
Thank you. I did better yesterday because of a lot of reasons.
Nervous today.
This and many others, about a dozen, not quite a dozen species are, we're gonna make them available to dig off of our farm. So you could plug in live roots. A lot of this stuff, it's possible there are seed there now, or there will be eventually landing in that gravel bar in subsequent rises. And it's not just this or that species. There are many species that do many jobs in the riparian area and play roles, and some of them are woody species also. Little trees and things. The bacris. Some people.
Sorry, Bill.
Yes.
On just above Jacobs Well, there's a bunch of gravel down there. Bushy blue stem does well down there. Buttonbush, sycamore. I mean, Steve will get into all these. There's a lot of stuff that just.
When we go outside, I think Steve will pick up some of this stuff. Especially if you have a gravel bar there, then we'll.
Oh, we do.
Especially now.
We do now.
Well, that's bushy.
There's Eastern Gamma there. Get up here. I think I do have a picture of. Well, that's Eastern Gamma again. Yes. I don't know how I got to there. That's not my deal.
Yeah,
That's fine. Next.
it's for Melissa.
Oh,
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you still have more slides though?
let me. I can quickly wrap this up. There's about 5 points right here. I'll
Want me to
cut the
do that?
language.
Okay.
Thank you for.
I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate it. I think there's too much to know. I think what would be important for the community, and some people are already talking about this, is to reorganize more workshops that are specific about just the plant. And try and tailor it. Can we go back briefly for the close of this?
I have a quick question. Your website is an excellent resource. I've been buying your seeds for years. I
Thank
love
you.
it.
My daughter,
are
who
you-
was with me yesterday, is the keeper of that and the producer of all of our outreach stuff.
Every get catalog gets lost in the
That one?
house, I wait for yours every
Yes.
time it comes out. But are you going to take some of this information that you've collected and some of the research that you, again, collected, and are you going to make it available on your website at some point? You
Yes,
hope to do that?
we have one page now that's
Yeah.
already been put up as of yesterday of the riparian recovery mix. And so we'll begin to supplement to that. There's a lot of work to pull all this in, to gather it in the right place, in the right format. The other thing is we are somewhat sensitive about the reality of the human element of this, and that we don't want to come very strongly with a heavy marketing thing. That is up to the community to decide if this is appropriate. Perhaps the community would talk amongst themselves and help. If you would like to encourage us to get something out there, we can. We will. I just want to make sure you understand, when you get to the back of the room, at some point, I'm going to get the heck off of the front line here, and Melissa, with the Texas Parks and Wildlife, has graciously organized to have these seeds available to people that are coming to these workshops for free. It's enough to do several hundreds of square feet. There is the stability rating is on the package, and it's looks something like this. The species, the eastern gamagrass, has a very high rating. There are other rated stuff. Some of them have never been rated yet. We just got started on this as a people relatively shortly ago, so there's a lot more to do. 1 is bare ground, 10 is an anchored rock. Eastern gamma is 9. This baby right here. Very important if you're thinking of terms of sustaining through this in the future. Stability ratings, though, they multiply when you put mixtures of plants and they're interconnected. So you could put numerous lower stability rated plants, but connect them together and they multiply their rating. I threw this in as a difference, and I think it makes a statement if you can figure out how to read what is happening right here. An eastern gamagrass plant, which you see are pretty darn thick and tall. And look at this pecan tree that is sprouted side by side, protected from the deer and those rises until that sapling gets strong enough. This is really cool that people are moving forward with positive action and touching the land and looking, but the stability rating here could be improved.
3 months later?
The stability has to be connected to the uplands. Thank you for your patience. Thank you. You're welcome.